Hello and welcome to Social Media Kindness Day, and this is my panel of wonderful people that are in my world of social media, and actually what we want to talk about today is actually how do we start to really lead the change with social media kindness. So I'm just going to give everyone just a real 30 seconds or so just to introduce themselves before we get going. So Lisa, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lisa Berry, as the name suggests, and I help.
Hi, I'm Jenny Gordon. I'm a people developer, facilitator and coach, and I'm the comparisonitis expert.
And Anita?
Hi, I'm Anita Figuera, and I lead Fierce Project Management, which is all about empowering women who lead projects, particularly in male-dominated spaces.
Graham?
Yeah, I'm former SCMH, social mental health assistant head. Now do a lot of teacher training, consultants and stuff like that. Spend a lot of time on social media in terms of sort of education, Twitter, etc. But I've also got 2 autistic children, so that has an impact on. That's an area where there's a lot of disagreement, so that's also interesting.
Yeah, and you've just recently written a book as well, haven't you, Graham?
I have, yeah. In fact, that started with not so much trolling, but a disagreement on Twitter.
Right.
That inspired something. So.
Okay, and I'm Emma Last. My company, Progressive Minds, and the work that I do is around helping people to be more mentally fit, mentally agile, and able to perform at their best. And so we're going to talk about the overarching thing we're going to be talking about is really how we lead a change. But when we start to lead a change, we really need to think about kind of actually where are we at? Where are we right now? And how do we start to take that forward? So, guys, what's your experience with trolls?
Did you want it's open and we're just gonna wade on in.
Okay, go on, you wade on in.
For anyone else ever have it doing that sometimes. Okay, so it's not just my experience that I come today, but as doing what I do, a lot of my clients and my community, I'll be the first person they tag or they message me and say, help me, this is happening. So I hear a lot of stories relating to this. And one of the things, and Graham brought it up backstage, so to speak, when we were talking about what is trolling. And I think that we can very quickly jump and say, I have a troll, when actually it's somebody who might be feeling like they're just giving you the best. They're just giving you their honest opinion. And it's really important that you understand this opinion of theirs so that you can understand them. And then you can change your mind, because you're obviously not right. You need to understand their point of view. The important thing is to remember that the intention isn't always to be nasty and derogatory and horrible. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that we have to remember that we can lump a lot of this stuff into one thing and call it it's like bullying. I used to be a teacher as well, and kids would say, "Oh, so-and-so's bullying me." Well, not all of that is bullying. Some of it is just human behaviour and human disagreement. We have to acknowledge what actually is trolling and where our boundaries are. Like, at what point do we say this is not acceptable? And I think individuals, we have to make that decision ourselves. So I have a very strict boundary now that if anyone even comes close to what could be perceived as trolling, they are gone, because my mental health online is far too important. I don't owe anybody having to listen to, I don't owe anyone anything when it comes to my online space. My online space is my business. Like, if I allow other people to infiltrate my mind in a way that means that I find it difficult to be courageously visible, then my business is going to suffer. And nobody's going to do that to me and my children, my family, my dreams, but the people that I know I can help. So the minute and that could be, I've wrestled with this a lot, because I've wrestled with it is, am I being snowflake? Am I avoiding conversations? But I'm not. I will have those difficult conversations with, you know, outside of social media or in different formats, and like not on a thread about like when there's like you know, say a news story and everybody jumps on it and everybody's abusive. Like, that is not the place where any actual change can come. Change will not come from engaging in these conversations online where people are already so entrenched. Brené Brown said something recently like, it's so much harder to hate up close. And so we are never going to be able to break these boundaries and peel the divide while we continue to argue on social media, because they are still just another crazy person that we can't understand on the other side of the screen, rather than being a human being who's doing their best but who may be a bit lost.
I think there's a lot in that. I think the skill of perspective taking is getting less and less and less constantly, and it's starting in school, because you know we're in schools now, and it's not a case of, you know, we've got a lot of schools that are, well, you just do it kind of thing, and there's no explanation of why we're doing it. So there's no to or fro, you know, negotiation, if you like, to say these are the rules and this is why we've got the rules. It's just these are the rules, you follow them, and it starts there, and then it just carries on, and it's kind of, you know, when it's not social media and you say something unpleasant to somebody or derogatory to somebody, you have to look them in the eye, and then you go through a process of discussing it and coming to an agree to disagree situation or something like that. Whereas now you can just fire in that whatever, and nobody does anything about it. And the thing is what you said about your own mental health and drawing yourself away from that and blocking people, deleting people, or not getting involved. Other people, it might be that doing that makes it feel like the other person's won, and that's where we kind of get in that position of, you know, you damage your own mental health to try and do what's right, but then it's just a really difficult position, because you don't ever have to look anybody in the eye and you can say what you want.
I think there's also excuse me, we make assumptions about words, don't we? And I had experience recently where I had used a word that had triggered somebody else. The word I used was exotic. I was using it to describe a country, and the person I was having a conversation with was offended and said that was racist, so obviously my initial response was, oh my goodness, that wasn't. But what they did was to ask me what I understood by the meaning of the word exotic. And so I described what I was talking about and the context in which I was using it. And they went, oh, I see what you meant. In my world, this is what it means. And here's a link to some information about why the use of that word might be considered racist. And I read it. I read the blurb and said, I had no idea. I'm white, I'm middle class, and I'm privileged. I had no idea that word may have those connotations for you. So what happened was that we had a really, really fabulous conversation, which led to both of us understanding not only more about each other, but also why that might have happened. And I think that's, as we make assumptions that people understand the same, associate the same meaning with words as we do. And I say, if we had gone with our original thing was that she was offended by me, I could have been equally offended by, just called me a bloody racist, and we could have escalated it. But actually we listened as allies, because we're both really nice people. And we were curious and we listened to understand. So actually at the end of it, it was a really, what I would call a fierce conversation, which is fierce in the true sense of the word, which is authentic and honest, and robust. And it made such a difference.
Yeah. Anita, what's your opinion on what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because I have been in experiences. I don't think I've been like prolonged trolled, fortunately, but I have had my own experiences where, because I do put out the fierce conversations, I talk about equality, and I can be quite forthright. I do get people that disagree with me, and sometimes that can cross the lines of what I think is okay.
Yeah.
But similar to Jenny, sometimes it's a discussion point and we can have a discussion. But I've also drawn my boundaries of how far I will take that in the comments, because you can't pick up nuances, you can't pick up what people mean. So I do block people for my own mental health. But on the flip side, actually recently I got called a bully online, and actually in that case I saw that I was just offering a different opinion, and I actually, because it was a really sensitive topic, I did try to and convey compassion as well, but it's really hard in a comment to do that. So I added an emoji heart to say, okay, I'm saying this with compassion, and the other person took it that I was being a bully, and that, you know, no use of emojis could cover that, and it made me seem more insincere. So it's just, again, that thing that actually online, when you're not looking at people, you don't know them very well if they're not people that you know in real life. But actually, even then, we don't know other parts of ourselves that kind of come out. We can really misconstrue things and misconstrue the intentions. We can get triggered.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really difficult space that we just need to come at with that kindness to ourselves and kindness to others. I think it's really important, but it is a really quite difficult line to get right.
Yeah. So Social Media Kindness Day has been brought about due to the death of Caroline Flack. It's been organised by one of her very good friends and a publicist, and we, earlier in the year, when a lot of us were kind of, for a lot of us, it kind of came from nowhere. We knew that she was having a really tough time. We knew she was in the media. There was kind of very mixed reports about kind of what had happened, etc. That seemed quite, out of character, etc. For Caroline. And obviously, when it resulted in her taking her own life, there was a real massive campaign around Be Kind that came out of that. But in terms of what we're trying to achieve with Social Media Kindness Day, this is something that, so Be Kind started, and everyone was trying to be kind online to each other and be kind everywhere. But then, that kind of wore off a bit. So this is why
wore off a lot, actually.
Coronavirus happened, and then it just divided people more than potentially coronavirus, Black Lives Matter. We hit with divisive, even everything's divisive now. There's so much more. It used to be like, are you Labour or Conservative? Who are you voting for in the general election? Now it's, do you wear a mask or don't you? Do you agree with local government? So much more, and people's lives and lives on the line. And so it was all very well saying Be Kind when we were in the pre-apocalyptic world. Something changed. I think that's a key.
I think that's been the same. Now there are more sort of obvious things like the mask and not a mask and all that. But that's been certainly in the case of education and stuff. That's been the case for a long time. If you have a strong opinion, then to support your strong opinion, the best thing you can do is create this dichotomy where it's either or, where there's lots of people that are in that middle that are then made to feel like they can't be anywhere in the middle, and that's, even though people might agree on things, you can't admit to agreeing on things because you have opposite opinions. But it just creates this situation, and that is the major things like conservative or Labour or Democrat or whatever, going through to mask, going through to COVID denying, through to whatever. But it comes back to educational circles, and it comes from zero tolerance, or you just let children do what they want, or the autistic argument of do we categorize, do we have low functioning, high functioning, do we have severe, not severe, all of these things, that it's an either or position you've got to be in, but the world is very grey, and that just causing people to just get batted down if they've not got a definitive, this is my strong opinion, I'm happy to listen to nuance and stuff, then they just get batted down.
So there is all these kind of discussions, aren't there, in terms of kind of where that fine line is and things like that. But as we kind of move to talk more about actual social media bullying and the effects, so, the reason why this day has come about is because we don't want it to be forgotten. Today would have been Caroline's 41st birthday, and that's why it's the 9th of November, and it'll be the 9th of November each year. So, what's your thoughts on social media bullying and how it can affect mental health?
I would go back one and say, actually, it doesn't have to be, as we said at the beginning, it doesn't actually have to be bullying. It can just be that relentless pursuit of an opinion, as Lisa said at the beginning, that absolute conviction that you're right, and the only agenda you have is to convince everybody else that they're wrong. So it isn't even necessarily bullying. It's that it's the language that we use and the way that we use it, I think, is where we need to start.
Yeah.
I would like to hope. I absolutely know that there are people sat in there, the stereotypical troll is out there, and they do make a living and a life. I've seen the fake accounts. They're literally set up to troll people. We've done investigation on some of them where it's happened to my friends, and it is like, it comes in and they'll go through all of their content. They'll start messaging their contacts and say, you want to stay away from this person is XYZ, and make up stuff. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's saying this person thinks that, so you shouldn't like them, but sometimes it's completely fabricated. Like, those people do exist. But what I think has become the problem, just as Jenny said, what we've all touched on, look at our lovely Anita, who we all know and love, who we would never ever consider a bully, as being earmarked a bully. And I think that it is very, what it's this whole thing of approaching with everyone's only doing the very best they can.
Yeah.
And if you kind of have that, no matter what, and also you don't know, you have no idea what's going on in that person's life on the other end of the screen.
Yeah.
So bullying can affect mental health massively when you have somebody behaving as I've described.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to do with mental health on social media. Comparatise this, Jenny, as you will know, being that expert in that area. Social media is huge for that. So social media has a huge impact on our mental health in general, and we need to put the strong boundaries into our own life to how we respond and engage with it, so that we can stay as healthy as possible, especially if things like, if it's your business, you can't just shut it down and walk away and say, oh, I'm done with it, because it's your business, so you've got to put those boundaries in place even clearer. So yeah, I think social media has a huge impact on mental health in general.
Yeah.
If we can just approach it by accepting that everybody is doing the very best they can, and it just makes life easier for us. anyway, as human beings.
So,
I think.
oh, sorry.
I just think when you're looking at bullying and things like that, bullying isn't necessarily about the action; it's about how you make people feel. And I think what happens a lot on certainly again going back to Twitter is once you start a disagreement, it becomes about sides, and then it becomes more people one side than is on the other side, and some people who have these very strong opinions, they kind of create these packs, and they come in and as soon as one person has a discussion starts, the same people appear to support the same person over and over, and that can be quite intimidating, and you see that quite a lot when people are sort of passing around the same circles, and that is, that is intimidating for a lot of people and quite an unpleasant position to be in. So it's about that feeling more than it is what has actually been said or what the action is, and that can be traced back right. Any form of bullying, the issue is how is that person feeling, and then that takes us back to mental health again, doesn't it? So
yeah. I've got some quite interesting stats. So this is from bullying in England, some bullying in England stats, and these were they're from 2018. 69% of people have admitted to doing something abusive to another person online. 26% of people have reported experiencing cyberbullying in the past 12 months. And 26% of people have had suicidal thoughts as a result of cyberbullying. Obviously, that's 2 years ago. As with a lot of statistics, they're always kind of a year out of date before we get our hands on them, aren't they? But yeah, what do you think around that? Do you think that's mainly children, or?
I think again, if you're looking at bullying, I haven't encountered bullying at any point in my time in education when there wasn't a reason why somebody was doing the bullying. And again, if you're face to face and you have a bullying incident in a school or something like that, you investigate it, you find out where it comes from. Because you're on social media, there is no investigating where that's coming from. So if your intention is to make somebody else feel bad because you feel crap, then you can do that very quickly on lots of different sites, and you can get that, that feeling if that's what your intention is. But we don't tend to look at what's behind it because we can't, and you can get that quick fix that lots of times and upset lots of people and get what you need, but without actually thinking on how it's impacting them.
Anita, you were going to say something, I think.
Well, I was going to say, from a child's point of view, like I've only got a really small one, he's only 3, but it does really scare me of how different it is from when we were kids. Because that bullying, like, would only, if somebody is bullying you, it would happen in a school premise, or it would happen in a place, a physical place, and where your child is. Whereas that bullying can now seep into, like, it can be 24/7, and a child can't get away from it. I mean, with the boundaries of when they can use a phone and things, but so that really does scare me. So I do wonder how, and I was thinking about this the other day. I think I was just watching a film and I was like, gosh, what am I going to do when Kai gets to that age, and what boundaries am I going to have to put in place? So not something I'm looking forward to at all. But then I think also I think as people are more visible, which might come with being an online business, but also if they're celebrities or if they're in a news article, it's almost like they're not people anymore. And then it's like it's fair game for people just to make really quite nasty bullying comments. So I remember right at the beginning of this year, and I wrote a bit of an article about how I started reading the comments about Meghan Markle at the time, and I was in tears because I was just like, it's so nasty, and it's racism and it's bullying. But I think, and now I actually avoid news articles because when you read the comments about anything, they're just so nasty, and so it's It's really
on my
like,
boundary
quite
list.
disturbing.
On my boundary list is do not engage in Daily Mail article comment section. That's actually written down. That's
I'm not even thinking about just the Daily Mail. It's like the local papers. It's like, gosh, so I block news articles now on my feed. But
I had a conversation just yesterday because somebody was saying that in the Daily Telegraph, their lead piece about Kamala Harris was what she looked like and the fact that she's hot. And they went, I'm disgusted with the Daily Telegraph or the Sunday Telegraph or whatever it was. And I said, but you read it. Actually, as long as people will read it, it's all these gossip, it's like reality. I hate reality TV shows. I think they're so horrible. I can't bear them. And I'd switch off because as long as we continue to read Hello magazine or whatever they are, the other magazines exist, I don't know, as long as we are reading, the reason that people journalists use the words that they use is because people buy papers and people love it. Apparently in this country we love nothing more than to knock somebody's success. We don't care about all the hard slog and the suffering that they've had to get where they've gone. We lift them up and go, wow, they're in everything, they're marvelous. We put them in the spotlight and then basically we smack them down because nothing gives us more pleasure, apparently in this country, and I'm sure we're not the only country, than making somebody who's successful feel awful. And if you look at the length of time it takes, Meghan Markle, as we were discussing earlier in the week, Anita, nobody's perfect, nobody's all good or all bad. We're all combinations of all of it. We all have the potential to bully and to be nasty and to be unkind. We've all got that in us. But the thing is, we choose not to. We choose. We do have a choice about whether we say something nasty or don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
Or to choose to look at it in a way that I wonder why somebody's behaving that way. But I think we, as long as we are prepared to read and give any credence to all those horrible things that people write, people will keep writing them.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, it's often a human nature to react to things that don't sit right with us, or or look interesting. It's our nature to react. But often, like Lisa said, in terms of her boundaries, with those boundaries, that's taking back some control and really thinking about actually, how do I respond to that rather than react to it? And I know I've kind of, with certain things, I've kind of taken a bit of a step back and thought, right, okay, no, I'm not, I don't agree with that. I am going to respond to that, but I'm not going to respond to it yet. It's a bit like the emails conversation thing, isn't it? Where things get so completely taken out of context. When maybe you're just trying to give clarity on something. So, it's the same situation, and often comes back to that conversation, isn't it? It's about people talking and not communicating through words online. But obviously that becomes very difficult, when you're someone like, Caroline Flack, who, was in the media, and that media was, very heavily trying to get its message across, really, which obviously went on to have devastating effects. So, how do you think we can lead a change? I put with empathy, honesty, and kindness. How do you think we can lead that change with all of those things mixed in?
We start with ourselves first, don't we? I mean, that's the first step, always, is with ourselves. And it's why I draw my boundary list. And it's something that I talk to my clients and my community about doing as well. But there is something recently, with the American election, as each state came in, no matter whether you wanted it to go red or blue, the big thing that stuck out to me was the numbers, virtually 50-50 all the way along. And this is going back to what Graham said about everybody being trained. Social media has a lot to say about that, because we get delivered more of what we want to see. So we get this echo chamber constantly. So we just reinforce those core beliefs, and anything we see outside of it is just really alien and scary, and obviously either is attacking us, or it becomes when we feel our core beliefs are attacked, we actually go into as if we're being physically attacked. So if you'll notice yourself, you notice your heartbeat rise, you notice you like flush of blood, to like you feel like you're ready to fight or flight, like you're either going to run or you're going to fight. And that's why, like you say, stepping back is really important. But during that American election, something that I had a big thing about myself is I feel that I personally want to be part of something more than just looking at myself. Like, I've spent time doing that now, and if that's like you've got that, then it's like, okay, well, what now? And I do think that media and social media have a lot to answer for, and I'd like to see them held more to account. And I don't know what that will look like. I don't know what I'm going to physically do, but I do feel that when you've got, you know, politicians bullying online as well. I mean, Donald Trump's Twitter account is just like a stream of bullying people. That behaviour held as right, and then like exactly what Jenny says about the newspapers. You know, people see that, and as human beings, we are inherently good. We've made it so far as a society because we've collaborated, communicated how we become successful. And it is, but we are only, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. When the media tells us we're bad all the time, and the media picks up on the negative in us, we live up to that or live down to that. So I think that there needs to be more work, and I don't quite know what it looks like, but start with ourselves. And then once you are in a place yourself, then it's about asking yourself, why is this happening, and what can I do personally? Everyone's individual journey and their individual contribution is very unique to them and what they feel called to do. So sort yourself out, like be in a good place first, because you can't do a whole sort of massive thing. You can't help other people, but be in a good place first, put your own boundaries in, and then decide what your contribution is. And take those simple next steps to make the world a better place, whatever that means to you.
I think we've got to start again with children, if I'm honest. I think we have a position now where so long skills in agreeing to disagree, in debating respectfully, in hearing other people's opinions, in taking other people's perspectives on board, those things don't exist in schools anymore, and that's showing in adults now. And those things have to be, especially the, you know, seeing things from other people's point of view and accepting that they're different to yours. If we don't start teaching, you know, you'll always have the people that will do that, and will inherently have those things. But I think they're being outnumbered by people that don't, and the people that don't have got louder voices at the moment, and that's part of the problem. I think the other thing we've got is, and if it's proved one thing, you know, the COVID situation at the moment, you can always find somebody who will agree with you. You know, you can go in any, you know, you can find a scientist to agree and back up your opinions. You can find people with far left, far right views that will back up your opinions and stuff. So you can always just quote something as fact and stuff. So those things are not going to go anywhere, I don't think. But the actual discussion part, we can reteach that, I hope. But we've got to try.
Sorry, go on.
I think one of the things, and Emma, we've talked about this, is that, you know, there's a lot of discussion about physical fitness. And we, you know, you have to go for your walk every day, and you have to do, and we make that part of our children's lives, although maybe not quite as much as we need to. But we don't do the same thing. And back to your point, Graham, about schools, I absolutely agree with you. Making mental health fitness is something that we teach in schools. And one of the biggest, when I was doing the research for my book, one of the biggest things that could change is teachers saying, you're not like your brother, your sister. Yeah. My dad said, they used to say that to me at school. My sister said, they said it about me. They said it about with you. So that is something that goes through generations. You're not like. My plea to all teachers who may listen to this is please never, ever, ever let those words leave your mouth again. Every child is an individual. They're not like anybody else. Why do you assume that because Emma's got a sister or I've got a sister or Lisa's got a brother, why would we be the same? I have 3 sons. They're all incredibly different because they're all different people, and every single one of them was told, you're not like your brother, are you? It's the most hideous, shrivelly comment, because the inference is that in some way you're lacking if you are not like somebody else. That's the inference, the assumption that we all make. So if there's one change, teachers should never, ever, ever utter that sentence to anybody ever again, or parents. None of us should do it. It's hideous.
We've also, the other thing as well with children is, asking questions and asking people with authority to explain decisions and stuff like that. That's a fast track to exclusion. So children are discouraged from actually questioning and learning and trying to see other people's point of view, and all these are seen as bad things, which is just not. It's mad.
I've got an example of that. Well, obviously, like we're talking about comparisonitis, but like mother, like daughter. So she got told, if you ask one more question, you're going out of the room. And if lessons aren't engaging, she will challenge it. It's not. She's a bright kid, and and she does see through weakness, which I probably empathise with that when I was her age. But being told, if you ask one more question, you're going out of the room. But she said, well, if I can't ask questions now, then when can I ask questions? And the teacher's answer was, you need to come and see to the homework club at lunchtime.
So give up her own lunchtime because she's inquisitive and wants to understand. Yeah, this is why I homeschool.
Curiosity.
Today.
Curiosity is one of our greatest assets, isn't it? It's understanding. I so agree with you, and as a parent, I'm sure many times that I've said, why do we do that? Because I say so. My mum used to say that to me, because I say so. But actually, I did always try to explain, except when it got really hard, about why the planets in that order. They just are. But I think that curiosity and if we use that same curiosity, that listening to understand, is a real advantage that we have.
Sorry, Jenny.
No, I was just going to say, just finally, that as Lisa would say, that kind of, you can't stand out if you don't know what you stand for. So being really clear, I think people who are either courageously visible or learning to be, it's really important that we say who we are and what we stand for, because I think that helps create those boundaries, and also as role models to younger people coming through.
We all have beliefs. We all have inherent biases that aren't necessarily our fault. They're the way that we're brought up, or the way that the world we live in, or experiences have happened to us. But unless we treat it by asking questions and being open to being educated, and in terms of, like you said, listening to understand, that it's so that when we go into these situations where there is confrontation potentially, it's really thinking about actually how do we, how can we tackle that in terms of, how do we put our our biases to one side to be able to learn, to then, you know, be able to kind of be in a situation where we can have a safe conversation with someone where we can both learn, you know, or whatever that might be in terms of.
I think we've been quite critical of schools generally, but I mean, there's some that are doing some incredible work around things like this. I mean, there's a school in Leeds where they're a coaching school, and they all get together and they start the day with, you know, the FLT will come in and they'll all sit round and have a conversation and get heard on various different things, and then all the staff will do it. But then all the children come in and they all sit with one member of staff to about 10 kids, and they all talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, but they have that dialogue going, and that creates a situation where every young person's been heard by 9:30 on that Monday morning.
Yeah.
And makes children able to express and talk. And if there are issues, they then know how to talk about those issues. And how to, you know, resolve those issues and how to understand other people's perspectives and stuff. And that model it's not complicated to do. It's just a willingness, and just isn't the willingness. Everybody wants everything immediately and just want to fix things straight away. And you know, it's the same thing. It's too easy to just fire out a negative comment and get the attention that way than it is to actually have a conversation that brings a resolution.
Yeah. Because that's one teacher in a school. That's not every teacher in that school, if that makes sense. It's very much about, you know, actually that a lot of the other teachers have teaching a completely different way, you know. So
that teacher could have just had a bad day in the like, understanding and meeting with compassion and love. Yeah, it's a tricky one, and education is something as an ex-teacher and homeschooler I'm very passionate about as well. And it's one of the reasons I homeschool is because I see the gaps. If the small schools were doing stuff like that school in Leeds, Graham, then you know that. But it's so hard. I know from being in the system, it's so hard because everything that's set to you from above and the pressure that they feel. So why I left teaching was I stopped looking at the kids as kids. They just had levels on their head. This was levels, and I noticed that myself, and I had to get out. But that is, it's really, they are doing an impossible job. With the expectations on them from all angles, and nobody trusts them, and nobody, you know, that I'm always one to stand up for teachers. So I wouldn't want this to be critical about teachers. It's the system in which they're working in, which doesn't allow them to have the space to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Well, the current education in England have got no interest whatsoever in mental health. They'll put the little, you know, the mental health first aiders and stuff like that. They're good sound bites, aren't they, for the media? But they're not actually doing anything. Whereas you go to Scotland and they're doing an awful lot, you know, and they're very much a restorative approach, and the focus is very much squared on mental health. And if you take you know, although the focus is completely different, if you take the results, there's very little difference, you know. And that school in Leeds, their results have improved because they've created a safer environment where children feel like they can express themselves. And it's that, again, it's a very much, it's a very short-sighted view, unfortunately. Which is
You think kids get exam results as opposed to teaching them to be functioning adults in society, which includes, in this world that we live in today, social media.
Well, that's what I end up teaching, really. A lot of what I do is about teaching the soft skills that, you know, and the kit bag that people need, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's something, mental health in schools and well-being in schools, and actually how, you know, how can we work with the system and get the support that we need for the children. That's really important to me. Well, I've just recently been involved in a project on that. So that has just recently launched. It's the First Aid Industry Bodies course. So Yeah, so yes, it's definitely a topic that's dear to my heart. Well, thank you ever so much today. I think we've had a great discussion. I think we could talk for hours on this, couldn't we? But thank you so much. And have a great social media kindness day.
Thanks, Emma.